Hey friends! I'm in a little bit of a silly mood right now because I'm really happy and excited. So I wanted to do a quick video on why I embarrassed my husband. And the reason is, I love negotiating. I absolutely love it. And my husband, not so much, which is fine because, hey, then when there's a situation where we need to negotiate, more opportunities for me to get to do it. So that's fine with me. Anyway, so I will negotiate on a lot of things and maybe even some things that other people may not know are negotiable. So I want to share with you some ways that you can negotiate and some tips on how to do that. So as it pertains to buying a house, or anything really, you can just negotiate on a lot of things as both the buyer or the seller. So if you have a yard sale or whatever and you have some stuff, there and somebody asks you if you'll take less, you can obviously negotiate with them. Or as a buyer in that, yard sale, if you see something and you're like, I could really use that, but 50, no, I just think that's too much for that, whatever it is, you can just offer less and then see what they'll take. There are a few things though that you'll want to keep in mind when you negotiate for anything that you do. So, the first thing I would recommend is to always keep the conversation positive. The moment the conversation becomes negative, or if you insult, you've lost, because they will get upset, they'll get offended. A lot of people would rather just hold on to their thing rather than sell it to you because you were rude to them, or whatever. Then immediately it's just not going to work. So you've got to stay upbeat, you've got to stay positive, keep a smile, it's just, you're not trying to insult them, you're just trying to pay a little less, But it does seem like sometimes as a buyer, the seller will insult you because you've offered less. Again, no need to be offended. We put an offer on a house, we got it accepted, which it was way less than their asking price, which was exciting. I actually just negotiated with the home inspector, probably one of the best ones in town, especially according to the reviews, that we're going to have to inspect our house. So I'm really excited about that. I will admit though that he did kind of laugh at me. I was just like, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. If I'm getting the best inspector in town for a lot less than he originally quoted me, then what is there to be embarrassed about? I get the inspection I want at a better price. No reason to be embarrassed. There are a few other situations where I negotiate as well. The farmer's market, we go to a certain farm where they sell like a potato sack. They give you this empty potato sack, one of those 10-pound ones. It's a pretty big bag. And you can fill it with as much produce as you want for a flat fee of $10. And I know what to choose and what not to. They have all sorts of things on their table to choose from. And I know to choose the most expensive items it would be to buy somewhere else, or the things that you can fit more in a bag. And then the other thing is, I know the guy to talk to, and he actually lets me fill the bag even a little more than full, to where it's like, heaping. There are a lot of other things that you can negotiate for, and maybe a lot of things that you may not have considered. So I would highly recommend at least considering it. And bringing it back to the whole house negotiation, of course you can negotiate on a lot of things on a house. It's not just the purchase price that you can negotiate for, but there are things like, the closing costs. You can ask the seller to pay some of your closing costs. There are like the different types of financing options you could even negotiate with the seller. Sometimes they'll even be able to carry the financing, or if you can't come up with a full 20%, they would actually carry some of that, and then you would actually pay them back, and all sorts of different situations there. So you can negotiate with them your type of financing. You can do the move-in dates, repairs, paint, yard work. You can have a lot of things to have make the seller do instead of you having to do it. And then there are a lot of bigger items too, like appliances. You have to be willing to compromise. That's another thing. You have to be willing to meet in the middle. Don't like, well, this is what I want and I won't budge on it. Sometimes, that's a good thing and a good tactic to use. But at the same time, in order to keep the conversation positive, especially if you're down here and they're up here and they really don't want to go to your level, you have to come to a middle ground to where it's like, all right, well, it's a little more than you wanted to pay. It's a little less than they wanted to get or whatever. It's still going to keep the whole conversation positive. Everyone's going to still look at it with a positive outlook and whatnot. And so it won't be a bad memory for either of you. So that's definitely important. You got to be willing to compromise. And there are some other things that you can negotiate on when buying a house. Window coverings is another one. You can definitely negotiate those so that you don't have to buy your own curtains. A dog run or a chicken coop or those sorts of things, anything that's in the backyard that may be, you know, something they may not want to move anyway, so you can negotiate for those types of things. Even furniture, you can even negotiate for some of the furniture. It will say though that you may not want to fully rely on your agent when negotiating, because if you're better at negotiating and they might not be as good at it, you might want to say, here's what I want you to say, and then have them just be your mouthpiece, so to speak, as they're conveying it. Because if you want to say, here's what I want to offer, you know, that may come across as, well, that's the best we got. You know, if you say it in a more gentle way, and then you make sure your agent can convey that in the same way, like the house we just went under contract for, basically what we said is, you know, the reason that we offered this is because that's the best that we can offer. It basically maxes us out from what we can, and it's almost uncomfortably high for us, and so there really isn't a whole lot more we can do. Then the seller understands it's not because you don't like their house, it's not because of the condition that it's in or anything like that, it's because it's just the best that you can do. So they know that it's not necessarily them that are to take the insult. If anything, they know that it's just you and your financial situation, your budget, you know, what the seller or the bank or credit union or whoever you're pre-approved from has said that your budget has to be. And so, you know, that's another good tactic as well, is to say, well, this is the highest that I can go. Or when I'm at a yard sale or whatnot, I'll say stuff like that too. I'll say, you know, this is all the cash I have, but I really like this item. I've gotten some things that way too. So yeah, that's another good negotiating tactic. So hopefully this helps you. So if you like to negotiate, then maybe it can improve your negotiating skills a little bit. If you don't like to negotiate, hopefully this can help you feel a little bit more confident in it, because it's really not embarrassing. It's nothing to be, you know, embarrassed of. And if you can get the things that you would like to at a price that you're more happy with, you'll probably be excited too, and you won't have to feel, you know, down about how the whole process has to go sometimes. So hopefully this video was helpful to you. Tips for negotiating. I'm Frugal Green Girl, and we'll see you next time.